James Lynch here for My MMA News. Happy to be joined by one of my, I'll call him a teammate. We work together on The Gambler's Perspective. You see him every week. He's also on UFC On The Line. Nobody better to talk about this whole situation with Isaac Dulgarian that occurred on the weekend at UFC Vegas 110. Gianni the Greek here on the program. Gianni, how are you?
Never better, brother. Thanks for having me. Yeah, busy time in the sports betting world. And,
yes.
A lot of noise coming out of the MMA right now in this betting industry for sure.
Yeah, and it's been kind of a crazy month, right? We had the issue with the NBA and that whole betting scandal. And this past weekend, we had the situation with Isaac Dulgarian. So in case you've been living under a rock, significant line movement on the fight going into it. It looked like there was someone was tipped off and we got some big bets going in. So I guess where I wanted to start first, Gianni, I know, again, you got a lot going on with college football and watching fights and all that. When did you get wind that something was up with this fight from the line movement? Take me through that and then we'll kind of work our way through.
Well, Saturday afternoon. See, here's what I saw happen. Early in the week, Dulgarian attracted sharp action, and he got steamed upwards, okay? Leading into Friday, there was some buyback on the DeVal side. In fact, I did a Friday football show that Dave Mason from Bet Online was a guest also. And he actually spoke on this fight because they asked him where the sharp money was in MMA. And he gave out like 2 fights and then he gave out this fight. And he said Dulgarian at like -160, DeVal at like +2 whatever. And I don't even think he noticed at the time like that it's the same fight. You know what I mean? Because like, again, he's a bookmaker. He follows MMA, but I'm just saying he was just sharing sharp information, reading 4 sharp plays off. And one happened to be both sides of that. Okay. So I was already seeing some DeVal money come in from Friday. But as of Saturday morning, all right, at about 11 a.m. my time, Dulgarian was about a -250 favorite. All right. So if you're looking at your odds screen, and rest assured, even your smallest bettors nowadays are looking at odds screens because there's free ones out there. Before, I was paying $500 a month to get up to the minute live odds. Now you could get 2-minute delays for free at so many different sites. And most recreational bettors don't need, even 5-minute delays, enough time for them. So anyway, most people are looking at live on screen. So we're all looking at the same pretty much market. And you see Dulgarian about -250. The break even at -250, what -250 means is the implied win probability is 71%. So we, the market at -250, are saying Dulgarian should win this fight 71% of the time. If you think he should win it 60%, then you should probably bet the dog. If you think he wins 80%, you should probably bet Dulgarian. So that was at about 11 a.m. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, about 3:30, all of a sudden you saw a big jump on the money line down to like -165. So going from 250 to -165, the break even on -165 is 62%. So now we've gone from a 71% implied win probability for Dulgarian to a 62% implied win for Dulgarian. 10 minutes later, this was at 345, 350, 355. He's down to 145. So now that break even's 59%. So remember, he was 71%, we all thought, just 2 hours ago. Now the market's saying, no, he'll win this fight 59% of the time. Well, about 4 o'clock, the UFC's starting. We're already into the prelims and all that, I believe. He's down to -130 in here at Vegas at some of the off-strip properties. That break even's 56%. So it's 15% difference in implied win probability. That changed, and that's a significant move, okay? But more importantly, the prop for him to win in the first round, for Dulgarian's opponent, for DeVal to win in the first round, opened at +800. It went off when the fight started at plus like 475. It's 850. It was 850 plus 475. Now, that also sounds like a big jump, James. But the break even on a plus 850, what 850 means is that we think it's a 10.5% chance, implied 10.5%. Plus 475 is implied 17%. So it's only about a 7% increase, saying that now we think that there's a 7% better chance that he finishes him in the first round. Now, let me explain to you why I'm bringing all this line movement stuff up. Because if you look just at this Saturday's UFC card, just pull up Daniel Marcos against Miles Johns, and you're going to see Daniel Marcos opens minus 300. If you look right now, Daniel Marcos minus 170. Minus 300 break even 75% is what the implied win probability is. 170 implied win probability is 63%. So that's a 12% jump right there. So if you compare that to the Dulgarian, which opened at minus 250, closed at minus 130, that was a 15% move in implied win probability. Well, we have one on Saturday that's already a 12, 13% move, and there's nobody screaming foul about it. But the difference is how this happened compared to how the Daniel Marcos betting line is happening. His happened on what the first book that went to market put out a line at. Couple sharp bettors thought it was off. They bet into it. They moved it. We have all week to bet. Opinions change. They're going to get two-sided action. Everything's good, dandy, no problems with line movement or anything. But on the Dulgarian fight, what they started seeing is as the line's dropping, guys like me are supposed to go in and bet Dulgarian, okay? Because when it moves that significantly, unless I have inside information that someone's hurt, that there's something shady happening, a big move like that's automatically going to put myself or other sharp bettors on the Dulgarian side. That big of a move. Like eventually you're going to start to see take back the other way. It happens with all the sharp sides. You see it all the time. Like you see it in college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA. Even though sharp bettors line up on a side or a total, when it moves significantly, you start to see some take back because the value is gone. They're betting numbers, not teams. But when the sportsbooks start to see that these bettors are taking this bet at any number and there's no resistance, red flags are going up. When they start to see, James, that new accounts are being opened just to bet that MMA card, like there's going to be red flags. And that's why. And then the specificity of the bets, win in the first round, win inside the distance, like those things just stick out, man. And like I said, even your most recreational bettor is looking at an odds screen. So unless you have a professional that knows how to move money and could get that money down without moving the screen, like they're all, that's they're more or less telling on themselves. Like the sports books do nothing but look at betting patterns all day, every day for the last 100 years. They know when there's an irregularity. And that's what I'm trying to, that's why I started here, because it's the irregularity in the betting pattern that set off the alarm. And then when you go in and investigate, you see, okay, maybe there is something shady, because the alarm's going to sound a lot. And it sounds in all sports. Here's what you got to remember. There's an integrity department that these sports books pay a subscription to for this exact situation, where all they do is monitor lines, monitor betting action, volume, and if they see any irregularity, they flag it. 9 times out of 10, there's nothing to it. It just happens that some sharp bettors got out ahead of information. Sometimes it may be weather related in other sports. Sometimes it may be an injury. And sometimes it may just be a bad line that they took advantage of. They do their research. They do a little investigation. They realize there's nothing shady going on. But here, anybody can see there's just a ton of red flags, James. The way it unfolded over those few hours on Saturday made it so obvious to someone like myself who just looks at betting lines. Because what you have to remember, when I saw that, before I even saw that, I got a couple texts asking me, what's going on with this? What's going on with this? And what I could promise you is what sharp bettors did is they started betting Deval because they realized someone had information. That's what they realized. Because someone like me, that's what I do. I look at the odds screens. I have nothing but lines in front of me. If I start seeing that a side is getting steamed and I don't see resistance, then I know this is a strong position and I'm going to take, put some risk on it myself, take a position also. And I think that's what started happening. Other sharp bettors saw this and were like, okay, something ain't right. We've seen this a million times. The ball's the side. And more money kept piling on. And there were no takers on the Dulgarian side. Again, that just kept showing for the sports books.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. There's so much stuff to unpack. First and foremost, when you say sharp bettors, just so people know, the average fan out there, that's people putting like big money, like which impacts the odds, right? Yeah.
Yes, because it's an account that's labeled as a winner. You're able to get out ahead of the market. The way they label sharp bettors, let me explain this, because a lot of recreational bettors get this wrong. They think that a sharp bettor is labeled a sharp bettor by the amount of money that they've won. It's not that. It's the risk that they pose to the sports book is why you're labeled a sharp bettor and why your account gets flagged as sharp. And the way that they're able to determine whether you're going to beat them, what kind of risk you pose, is the closing line value that you get. Meaning, if you're constantly beating the closing line, then they know you're going to beat them. You're a mathematical certainty to beat them, because the closing line is the strongest, most efficient price that we have. Because by the time the fight is about to begin, that's when all the information's been factored in. Like on Sunday, 2 minutes before an NFL game starts, that's when the line is its most efficient, because we know who's playing, who's not playing. We know the weather. We know how practice went all week. We know what the coaches are saying, what the players are saying. We know what the recreational bettors are on. We know what the sharps are on. So like we have all the most up to the minute information as you can get. And if you're able to get out ahead of line moves, then obviously you're going to beat them. And that's how they label you as a sharp bettor. It's not that you're betting millions of dollars. I have sharp accounts that are labeled as sharp for groups that I bet that I could only bet $500 on. And if I bet 500, they're going to move the line because they know it's coming from a sharp account. Obviously, they know, we probably bet it through 300 different books, me and the other guys that are working for these groups. But that's all that is. It's just the bettors that actually win, that do this and profit. Once they saw what was happening, they started piling on top of it as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, a couple things we want to get back to with the fight itself. So I had heard, and I don't know if you got confirmation on this, that I had heard when the fight actually started, I heard DraftKings and I heard some other books were actually pulling the props off the table. Have you heard any talk of that as well? Like right when the fight started? I'm not talking after the result, but I thought like even as the fight was going on, I heard that some of those bets were being pulled.
Oh, even before the fight even started.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Even like I think up to an hour before it started.
Yeah.
They started pulling them.
Okay. Yeah.
There was already rumblings of this. And remember, I hear a lot of rumors, James, in all sports. Not even like fixed rumors. Rumors this player's not going to play. Rumors these guys are hurt. They don't care. These guys were out partying last night. Just you hear all kind of rumors. I never the way that I am able to conclude whether it's believable or not believable is I simply look at the betting line. And the market's always going to reflect it because money's going to change hands when that happens. So the market's always going to conclude whether the information's correct or not. And that's exactly what was happening here. Like books knew beforehand that something is amiss because the integrity companies that monitor these lines red flagged the fight, reached out to them. That's what you pay the subscription for. And to tell them, listen, we're investigating this matchup. You may want to proceed with caution. At that point, the sportsbook has a decision to make. We could continue booking the action. We could limit the action, just put smaller limits so we don't piss our players off and they go across the street and bet it, then become customers there. Or we could just take it off the board completely and not deal with this. That's what a handful of sportsbooks decided to do, sportsbook operators. We're just going to wash our hands of this. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. This ain't our problem. We're not booking it. Other ones did book it, and you're seeing some are even refunding the money. And the reason they're refunding the money, again, is because these companies that they pay a subscription to let them know reached out to them well before the fight was starting, letting them know that something is amiss. It's the same thing with, you know, I'm an advantage blackjack player, a card counter. I'm in the Griffin book. There's a Griffin Investigations. All the casinos, most of the casinos, they pay a subscription to Griffin to get a list of they have us in there with cheaters, with dudes that made fake coins, guys that cheated poker machines, guys that cheated blackjack, and then they have card counters. And because of that, your face is in that book. It's in facial recognition of every casino system. If I go into their high limit pit, if I go to buy in, the camera's going to zoom in my face right away. The alarms are going to sign off, and within 20 minutes, they'll be downstairs asking me to leave because they paid that subscription to Griffin. Same thing happens here. These sportsbooks pay a subscription to an integrity department, most likely a company. I don't think it's free, regardless. And they let them know when they see irregularities in the betting market. And I will bet my history of sports betting against this, my reputation, that they got red flagged way before that fight started.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering that.
For it to be taken off the board, they were given a pat on the head, like, listen, dude, something's not right. It wasn't the sports book that all of a sudden said, wait, why is this? What's going on? It's Saturday afternoon in college football. There's World Series going on at that point. Do you think anyone's paying attention to Dulgarian against Duval in the middle of the afternoon? It's not a pay-per-view card. It's nothing huge. So the sports books would have missed it. But that's where the firewall, the protection against stuff like this, which is good. Again, the sports betting becoming mainstream, we're going to see a lot more of this because let me tell you, there's two kind of fixes that are going to continue to happen, James. Let me just put this
right now. Absolutely. Let's go.
And staple this now. Here are the two fixes that are going to happen in all of sports, not MMA, not pro sports and college sports. Okay. Two fixes. One is the wealthy athlete, the wealthy, successful athlete that made a ton of money. Here's why. He's got a gambling problem. He likes to gamble, whether he plays poker, whether he bets sports. And let me tell you, like 99.5% of all sports bettors, he or she has negative lifetime earnings. So they are losing sports bettors. Now, all of a sudden, they have the power to control the outcome. For a gambler, that's irresistible. That is impossible not to mess with. That's exactly what happened with the first NBA fix that I was a little bit a part of back in the early 2000s with Tim Donaghy. The reason Tim Donaghy fixed NBA games was because he lost money betting NFL games and the Major League Baseball games and college football games and college basketball games. So you can't beat anything else. You got buried, but all of a sudden you can win. Dude, like I said, that temptation's too good to overcome. That's why you see big name guys and you're like, wait, that guy makes 20 million a year. Why is he fixing games? Because he can. It's the one bet that he could actually win. And when you have the power to win as a gambler, you're not going to let that go. Rest assured. The second fixes that we're going to continue to see are going to come from athletes that have nothing to lose. That college kids that are never going to play on Sunday NFL, never going to play, pro ball, and they have one shot to make some scores. And whether they've dabbled in betting before, they know a little something about it, they're going to continue doing it. And the lower tier, guys that aren't making the money, the dudes on the bench that want to live like the players that are making 20 mil, but they're only making league minimum. Those guys are going to continue now that you could bet props. Before, they couldn't control the game, or they would have been doing it before. But the 11th guy on the bench can't fix a game for you. He's not going to get enough minutes, but he can fix his own props. That's the difference. That now we're giving them so many opportunities to go out there and corrupt sports. That's the difference. Before, only a handful of guys could, like in an NBA game, who can you reach? Who's really going to control it? The ref or the coach? They have full control. But of the players, who are you going to get? You got to get maybe a point guard and one other guy, or maybe the point guard. You know what I mean? but you got to reach the top guys. But a bench guy all the way down, he can't control the outcome of a game, but he could control his own props and stuff. So like that, we're going to continue to see, rest assured, we'll continue to see it because now it's in the forefront. It was going on before. These bets weren't available to them. Again, so these bench players couldn't do it if they wanted to. They had no power.
Well said. Lot to unpack there. Actually, there's one point we'll get to a little bit later quickly, but I still got some stuff I was curious about. So I'm sure you saw the fight. What was your reaction after seeing it? What was sort of your take on everything, knowing all this information and then seeing how the fight played out?
When I watched it live, I didn't know enough to tell you that it was shady. Like I see what I think are bad performances all the time. And great performances all the time. I don't know enough about the details of what's happening to call that out. I would be a fool and I would be egotistical if I thought so. But when I hear Michael Chiesa saying it, when I hear someone that knows exactly what they're looking at, and more importantly, someone that knows the level of athlete we're talking about and the caliber of the performance he's capable of, and he's doing elementary stuff and making it look like calculus, that's not going to stick out to me, but it's going to stick out to someone else. To me, I'm telling you, I was just like, yeah, he lost in the first round. The information was solid, obviously. A nice little score for anyone that jumped on board. That's how I looked at it. I didn't look at it like he went out there and just totally threw it like it was like a movie. You know what I mean? Like, again, if none of the betting patterns had happened, I don't think anybody would have been calling foul. Let's just say that, because there's performances all the time that we question. We talk about fight IQ all the time. And we're like, wait, why did he do that? Why did he take it to the ground? He was winning in the stand-up. Why would he take it there in his world and get choked out with only a minute left? He won 2.5 rounds. It happens. It's a fight. Things are going to happen in a fight. There's a lot of randomness involved. You're especially, it's not a sport like tennis, bro. You're grasping for your life. Someone's trying to knock you unconscious to finish you. So like you're going to do some stuff that's out of character or that's random. So I don't think, like, if there wasn't the betting patterns and the line movement and all the ruckus built up beforehand, I don't think that fight would have blown the red flags. We talk about split decision bullshit all the time. We talk about bad calls from refs and judges, and what did they see every single Saturday? Their average, I think, almost 2 split decisions per 13 or 14 fights. Well, you know what I mean? That's a high percentage of split decisions, which means there's bad calls all the time. So no, I didn't. Now you have a lot more knowledge of the X's and O's. Did you see anything?
I mean, it just, I've seen Dulgarian in positions like that before and not look as weak as he did in that position. Now, here's the thing I wonder, though, like, people talk about fight fixing, like, why did the action come in so close to the fight? Was it that people found out he was going to throw the fight, or was there an injury? Like, I know with the Minner case, right, with James Krause that happened a few years back, there was an injury and that got out and that led to the steam on the side of his opponent. Was that the case here? That's the part I don't know. Like, it wasn't a good performance from Dulgarian. You know, it certainly, we were hearing all this stuff happen and then the result happened the way it did. I mean, Dulgarian's never looked like that in a fight, and I'm not discrediting his opponent whatsoever. That's the other thing I'm hearing from people being like, oh, you just underestimated his opponent. Well, we don't have line movement like we've had in other fights like that leading into a fight. So that's where this became different, because people reference, you know, the Michael Aswell and Lucas Almeida fight where it looked like Almeida was injured going into the fight. But again, you're not seeing significant movement like an hour or two before the fight. That's, to me, what made this entire thing different. And obviously the UFC felt the same way because they ended up cutting him. And now you're seeing books like we talked about there. Actually, one thing I wanted to clarify, William Hill and Caesars, are they owned by the same company? Because I saw
company.
because they released a similar statement of giving the credit. My other question was going to be, have you heard anything about other books offering credits? Because I've just heard of the one which was William Hill and Caesars. Have you heard anything else about other books offering credit?
No, I just heard, for confirmation, I know those two for certainty are doing it.
Because they put the tweets out,
It's more of a marketing than anything else. They do it with bad beats now too. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like if your team's winning the whole, 59 minutes of a game, and then there's some crazy randomness happens and the improbable, and they'll return people's money as a gimmick, more or less. Like, you should have won, you didn't. we won't pay the bet, but we will let you get your money back. I think it's more gimmicky than anything else. It's now, like we're talking about it, everybody's talking about it. And if anything, also it makes their customers happy. The guys that lost now get a refund. That's loyalty. That builds loyalty for your customers. So I don't think it was a bad move. It was a good move on their part. And it's almost like they're acknowledging this wasn't on the up and up. And that tells me exactly what I talked about a few minutes ago, that the integrity companies let them know what was happening, and they know a lot more than they're letting on. And I guess they're just waiting for a federal investigation to give us the details. Otherwise, I think they would all be speaking, because they would be telling us, what did they tell you? What did they flag? What is the situation? Is he compromised? And did it leak out of the locker room? Because that could happen, man. It could happen even by accident. You know?
That's what I'm wondering too.
A person in the gym finds out someone's compromised, and he happens to know a gambler. You know, like, if things happen by accident all the time, or was it like you said, first degree, premeditated and thrown? Because he didn't look compromised in the fight, I don't think.
No,
like,
I don't either. That's the weird part about it. But then why the movement so much leading into it? That's the part and this kind of leads to my next question. And I kind of think I know how you're going to answer this, but I got to say anyways, like, Dulgarian was like thought of as like a pretty good prospect. I think if you look at his betting odds in most of his fights, he was a sizable favorite. Now, he did have a loss 2 fights ago against Christian Rodriguez, but a lot of people actually felt like he won that fight. That was a split decision loss. People felt like it could have gone the other way. So for factoring that in, he's technically a 3-1 fighter going into the fight leading into this. Why would he jeopardize all this to happen if he wasn't on it? That's the part that confuses me too. Cause like, he was actually a good fighter. We're not talking about a guy that kind of got lucky getting in the UFC. This is a promising prospect. The other sort of layer in this whole thing, Gianni, which is really interesting. Who did he used to train with? James Krause in Missouri. He's from Missouri. So you saw exactly what happened to his friend Jeff Molina, who is basically blackballed from the UFC now. He can't get back in because he was involved in all this. We saw what happened to Derek Minner. Derek's still fighting, but not in the UFC. Krause has been banned from the UFC. Like, knowing, like, he saw this firsthand what happened. Like, I guess my question is, like, does this surprise you if he wasn't on it because of all these things that I just mentioned to you there?
It doesn't surprise me just because of my age and my life experience.
Right. Yeah.
And what I've learned is we don't know what's going on in people's lives.
Right.
Like, on the outside, my father used to say, every house looks perfect, but behind every door, son, I promise you, everyone has their problems. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, no matter how big and beautiful the house is, they have the same different problems, but they have problems just like our little row house does, So you don't know I don't know Dulgarian, the details of his life, and I never want to talk bad on someone that's not here to defend themselves, or calling them out in any way. But you don't know what's going on in each individual's life. And we've all been in positions of desperate and doing things out of character. I know I've done things in my lifetime I'm not proud of, and that are out of character for me. And I think you just learn to sometimes, not do those things when times get tough, because you realize that it makes you who you are. Like, how you deal with adversity defines exactly the type of human being you are. And that I started changing my tune a little bit as you grow and age.
We get smarter, we get older, we learn from our mistakes.
And you realize the person you want to be, you know. Practice what you preach. And that's why I think it is possible, James. I think it's possible even for the people we least expect, because every individual has their own issues they're dealing with, their own personal issues, family issues, pressure from who knows. And everyone also, psychology differs, the way we process things and our risk, our how we, look at risk and the things we're willing to do, accountability,
So I obviously work in my world with, the media side of things, interviewing fighters, covering news and all that stuff. You're in a bit of a different world because you see sort of gambling as a whole. So my next question would be, what are you hearing this week? Is there anything that you're getting from people on your side of the fence about how this thing's going to transpire, and anything you're hearing that you can share with us of how this could unfold going forward? We know the FBI potentially is involved in this. We know Dulgarian got cut, so obviously the UFC's aware of it. We've also heard that they might be going back and looking at other fights. Like, what are you hearing from your end, if anything, that you could share with us here?
To please kill all the noise if you get an opportunity. That's why when you me and you spoke, I was like, yeah, 100%. I'd love to talk about this. Just because of all the noise that's out there and all the the misconceptions, like the idea that there's all these fixes going on is nonsense. It's ridiculous.
I agree. Yeah.
That's not the case. The fact that they're investigating 100 in just this year of, they're called betting patterns. It's every sport, dude. It's every single sport it happens. Why? Because there's betting syndicates around the world that get information and they move the market on information. That spooks the books, and their job is to make sure that that information was just that it wasn't somebody doing something like throwing a game, because it's happened in tennis, it's happened in soccer, it's happened all around the world in different sports. But usually people aren't able to keep their mouths shut. Like, it's just human nature. Just like when you mix money and people in the same sentence, you're also going to have corruption somewhere down the line. The same is also true with human beings in a secret. Very difficult to keep one. And more times than not, it always comes out, like when this stuff happens. That's why it does happen, but it's not as prevalent as people think. It's not, the mob's not going into gyms and asking people, "Are you willing to throw a fight? You willing to?" That's such nonsense. Athletes have been saying this, dude, since the 70s and 80s. I was at a strip club and a guy asked me if I did, like, what? That's not seriousness. That's just people, like, understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, that's just nonsense. I've heard so many athletes say things like that, and it's just nonsense. It like, anytime you even heard like that now, I'm not talking 50 years ago, 100 years ago. I'm talking over the last 15, 20, 30 years. Even when you hear of alleged mobsters getting involved, the reason the mob gets involved isn't because they're fixing the sport. It's because they're getting bet into. So they see these bets coming in and they're like, wait a minute. This guy's been losing to us since he's been 18 years old. He's now 53 and he hasn't had a winning year. And all of a sudden, he's won 17 straight Russian tennis matches. Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they start betting the same Russian tennis matches that this dude's betting. And then they start betting it for more and moving it. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, it's the mafia was in on it. They were in on the fix. They're booking the action. A lot of times they have a hand in the book. So when they see these things coming in, that's how the involvement comes. It's not like the movies, they're going in and, like with fedoras and cigars and I'm going to walk into Extreme Couture with a fedora and a cigar and be like, anybody want to make some money? Any kids want to make some money? Seriously, dude, that's not happening.
Well, I will say, so Ariel Helwani on his show yesterday said he's spoken to multiple fighters who have been approached. And then we had 2 fighters yesterday publicly come out. And it's interesting. I'll mention where they're from in a second. But Vince Morales, the UFC bantamweight, said he was approached. Vanessa Demopoulos also said she was approached to throw a fight. The interesting thing about Vince and Vanessa, they both live in Vegas. Have you heard any sort of talk of that, like in Vegas specifically? Because I've talked to other fighters. They're like, no one's asked me anything, but I could see that happening in Vegas where a lot of money is being thrown around. Now, I agree with you. I don't think this is like a, epidemic or anything like that, but I do, like, I'm sure there has been people approached, but
of course. But I'm saying, what is the level of the seriousness?
Yeah. I see what you mean.
Is it someone you know?
Yeah.
Is it someone, like, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or is it actually like a Gambino
yeah. So I know what you mean.
Flew in from Manhattan to talk to you.
Jersey, yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or is it just some bartender that's like, hey, would you throw a fight? You know what I mean? I bet, I gamble. Like, that's different, dude. I sat next to a Texas Longhorn wide receiver playing poker, and I was joking with him. I was like, bro, you know how much money we could make together?
Yeah.
You just got to drop a couple passes.
Yeah.
Like I was joking with. Now, if this dude goes on radio and says, "Oh, I was approached by the mob in Vegas to fix games," is that, you know what I mean?
I see what you're saying. Okay,
that's what I mean. What was the level of the seriousness of this, or was it a cartel dude in Mexico? Yeah, maybe. You know what I mean? That's a different story.
No.
Was it a Russian mobster? Maybe that's a different story.
Yeah,
but
gives good context.
It's not happening all over Vegas. They're looking for fighters to throw fights. That's ridiculous.
Last question, and again, we went way over time, but really good information here. This is exactly what I wanted. I want to give people kind of a perspective from your world into how this affects things. What do you predict will happen? We saw with the Derek Minner and James Krause thing, there was the fallout of that was Minner obviously banned, Jeff Molina banned, James Krause banned. We didn't really hear what happened to Krause. Like, it didn't look like he got jail time. As far as I know, he's doing real estate now. What do you predict will happen in this situation? Because obviously this happened a little bit faster than the Minner thing, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they immediately cut Dulgarian. I feel like Minner, it took a few days, but it was like basically the next day that Dulgarian was released. So what do you predict will happen in this situation from the knowledge that you have right now?
Well, I love what the UFC did.
Yeah.
We have not washed our hands of the situation.
Yeah, he's not with us anymore. Yeah.
If there's something shady, it's got nothing to do with us. That's exactly what how the respect organization is supposed to do. They're not on the gambling side. That, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. What the athletes make decisions like that, that's not them and stuff. So that was the move. And doing that quickly, even more gangster. I like that. But here's what I've learned. Investigations take years to put together. So one of two things are happening. Either back even with the Minner situation, they either saw something big and have been building a case that there's cases that take 8 years to build if it's huge. Okay. Or they had nothing. They had nothing but speculation, nothing but betting patterns, nothing but hearsay, no proof, no witness that's cooperator. You got no cooperator. If you don't have a cooperator or anything like that, like, it could just be that they have nothing. If you have nothing, you have no case. It's just speculation. Like, we could all assume, but where's the proof? What's the proof? That it looked that way, that we think it, that the betting line, but where is the proof? So again, it's been a couple years and we haven't seen anything. With here, it's the same exact situation. Where they're going to see down the road, year, 2 years from now, a bunch of indictments roll out, or absolutely zero, nothing. Like, they have no cooperating witness. You need one of two. That it's always like that. You need someone to flip that's a co-conspirator that cooperates. That's how it's going to go down. Or ironclad proof. And obviously, if they had that there'd be people already behind bars.
Right.
Like, if you had the smoking gun, the U.S. government bats 1,000. Like, it's you versus the United States government. If they're taking you to trial, you're losing. They're like 99% conviction rate. Like, you ever see what the paper looks like? It'll say the United States government versus James Lynch. Like they say, though, they won 2 world wars. You're going to mess with them, and they print their own money.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Gianni, this was great. Thanks so much. I know we'll talk more about this on Gambler's Perspective tomorrow a little bit too, because this is obviously a big story. But thank you so much for making time. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate this. Just anything you want to plug before we get out of here? UFC On The Line?
No. Thanks for having me, man. And thanks to all everybody that jumps on board and supports us over at the Gambler's Perspective. And of course, UFC On The Line. Just appreciate it. And I love that the talk, and it's the betting industry, man, that actually, when stuff like this happens, jumps out. I love that I was seeing even recreational guys that were picking this off. It shows you just how more sophisticated and intelligent and sharp that even your most novice bettors are today. Like, dude, it took me 20 years to amass some of the knowledge that these kids have after like 12 months of betting. And it's beautiful. It's because of all the information at their fingertips. So yeah, I just love where this is going. Don't let it put a dark stain on gambling and sports betting. It's been great for the leagues and all sports. It's great for fans to have a rooting interest. Yes, there's always going to be some bad apples. Yes, there's always going to be those that develop gambling problems. Like, there's good and bad in everything. But this isn't a reflection of the sport. It's not a reflection of the industry, and it's not a reflection on any gamblers per se. The isolated incidents, bro, and we just got to move on from them. That's it.